This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so I hope. Okay, I see. Jesse asked for a minute, but I think hope they're there. Um, this I think this is going to be the last share until school resumes because whatever everyone will go on their holidays. Um, so today we are doing Pei Gimel, which is 83 for anybody who wants to follow. So just a little bit of background. If you take notice right from the beginning, this is a chapter which is written or composed by Asaph. Asaph, if you remember, was a Levi and he was appointed by David HaMelech to be the in charge of the music and the singing whenever they had any kind of public worship in Yerushalayim. And then later on, when Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis Hamikdash, Asaph's descendants were the musicians and the singers of the Beis Hamikdash. And this Pei Gimel is the 11th one in order. So if you're looking back in your Tehillim, you'll see that the last 10 chapters are all composed by Asaph, and most of them are mostly historical stories of things that happened to the Jews. Strangely, as only happens in Tehillim, I think, it is prophecy about our history, which I think that's I don't know what the English word is. I think that's an oxymoron. To say prophecy about the history, but that like so much of Tehillim, David HaMelech is telling about things that were going to happen, that were still going to happen, but for us it's history. This capital of Tehillim is speaking specifically about the war with Yehoshaphat, and I think as we go through it, and we are going to do quite a surface understanding of this capital because that's all the time really allows. You're going to see why this is the chosen capital of Tehillim that people say that is like being prescribed for when Jews are in danger, when Jews are fighting a war, and why almost every time you get a WhatsApp that tells you which Tehillims to say now, Pei Gimel 83 is generally on the list. So we have a look at it. It begins. The introduction is Shir Mizmor LaAsaph, which we would translate a song, a tune by Asaph. So the Alter Rebbe asks right away, what is the difference between a shir and a mizmor, a song and a tune, a mizmor? There are lots of different opinions, lots of different explanations for it. But the Alter Rebbe's response, he says, a shir, a song, has words, and mizmor is the music that accompanies it. So if we have shir mizmor, then we having a song with music, and then obviously anybody who's even slightly familiar with Tehillim knows that very often it says Mizmor Shir rather than Shir Mizmor. So what is this capital? What is the intent when it says Shir Mizmor? And Chazal explained to us that when a nation were going out to war, the Navi, the prophet of the time, would tell the people to sing, and they would start singing, and singing would give them courage to face the war. I think much like we've all been watching these, like over these past few weeks, when you see the soldiers in their uniforms with their guns over their shoulders, and they dance together and they sing. And it says Chazal that the words of the song actually give them courage. So the one that stands out to me the most is the song that we keep on seeing over and over, Misha Ma'amin Lo Mefached. Someone who believes isn't scared. And why is this so strong? Why does this come out? Why do they do this? Because It says that when a person sings, they give themselves courage, and if they sing over and over again, they have a lot of courage, and they face whatever fearful thing that they're going to face with courage. When someone faces a situation with courage, they have a much bigger chance, a much better chance that they're going to be successful. And so this is what used to happen, that when there was going to be a war, the Navi would tell people to sing. But they couldn't have total rejoicing before the war started, because they were scared and they didn't know what was going to happen. And although they had courage and they had belief and they wanted to hopefully come out safe and winners and everything, there was that inkling of fear that, like, what is going to happen, and will I survive this? When they came home from the war, when they had won the war, then they would be singing and dancing with music. So the shir should bring to the mizmar, and this is what Asaf was saying over here. Shir mizmar, the song we're singing, begins as a song to give us courage, and it should move into a song that is true and absolute rejoicing. Just to picture one of the scenes that Divrei Hayamim tells us a story of that fits with this, that corresponds with this parak. It says that there was a Navi called Yechaziel. Yechaziel was there at the time of Yehoshaphat. He was a direct descendant of Asaph. And at one time, 11 nations turned against the Jewish people and attacked them. And everybody panicked. So what happened? King Yehoshaphat ran to the Beis HaMikdash to daven. He declared a fast day, and everybody was like getting ready for a big battle. And Yechaziel, he was called Yechaziel Halevi. He was the prophet of the time, and he told everybody they should sing. And he got a group of people, singers, people who sang beautifully, and he sent them into war in front of the army. So they went first singing. The soldiers followed them, and obviously singing also. And they won the war in 4 days and went home. So this is the chapter that we are reading now. This is what it corresponds specifically with that story. And so Asaph goes, and he says, Alekim al damilach. Hashem, please don't be quiet. Okay. Al techarash, don't be deaf. Al tishkot kel, and please Hashem, don't be still. So it's like a turning. Part of the song is pleading with Hashem or imploring Hashem, listen to us. Okay, don't be quiet. Don't allow this to carry on. And Chazal asked the question that no doubt many of us are asking. Hashem is watching. How is Hashem allowing this? Why do we have to ask Hashem to look after us? Why do we have to ask Hashem to keep the soldiers safe or the people safe? Why doesn't Hashem know that himself? Like, surely he knows what's needed over here. And Chazal answer that when there's a relationship, there have to be two sides. And the conversation has to come from both sides. It's not always a one-sided conversation. That's not a relationship. And in a situation like this, if Hashem is not doing the talking, quote unquote, then we need to. Like many people will know that if their marriage is going through something or whatever, an outsider might say, tell your husband what you want. Tell your wife what you need, right? And that makes for a good relationship when you're able to communicate and say what you want, say what you need, even if expected that the other person should know. And this is what Chazal tell us, is this response of turning to Hashem and saying, Al damilach, Hashem, don't be quiet, listen, watch, this is what we need from you. And as the chapter continues, telling more and more to Hashem what we need, and continues and says, because your enemies are in a rage, and those who hate you are sticking up their heads. So it's explaining that the Yidden are being pursued, being tortured, being pressured. The Yehemayim, their enemies are in like an absolute rage. And who are these enemies? Nasarash, even many of them are great people. They heads of cities, heads of states, like they're important people. What are they doing? Pasuk Dalad. Al Amcha Yarimu Said. They are plotting or they conspiring against your nation. These Yatzal Tunecha, and they are making plans on your precious ones. We Yidden are called Sfunecha, we called Hashem's precious ones because our relationship with Hashem is precious. Okay, it's a very precious relationship. And this actually, say Chazal, is what makes the Goyim hate us. They hate the fact that we have a precious relationship with Hashem. What are the Goyim saying? Pasuk Hey. Amru, they're saying, let's go and wipe them out. Let's wipe them out completely as a nation, and we won't remember the name of Israel anymore. So their plan is to wipe out the Yidden. We don't want Yidden anymore. We want to annihilate. The Yidden, and we'll wipe them out in which way. And it's so interesting because Chazal tells us such things that we can see how it's happening or what is happening. Chazal say their plans to annihilate the Yidden is not only warfare, but they say that they burn their crops. And they refuse to buy their foods and their produce. In other words, sanctions, all those kinds of things. Let's go and annihilate them. And what do they want? La Yizacher Shem Yisrael. They don't want to remember the name Yisrael anymore. So let's understand what this actually means. So Yaakov had two names. He was born with and given the name when he was born, Yaakov, and later on in his life, Hashem gave him a new name, Yisrael. He didn't take away the Yaakov. He added the name Yisrael, and lots of discussion. What's the difference between the two names? Why Hashem didn't take away the Yaakov? Why we hardly use the name Yaakov? What is the basic difference? So there's lots and lots of discussion about that. But the one that I want to go with now is from the Kli Yakar, and the Kli Yakar explains. He says that the name Yaakov is from the word ikveni or ikvavaremia, which means hidden, tricked, twisted. And the name Yisrael comes from, if you divide it up, Sar, which is an officer, Sar Nagid, and also it comes Yashar, from straightness, like being upright and straight. And the Kli Yakar explains, he says, there are some times that we are in Galus, we're in exile, and we get let out of Galus, but by trickery. The most obvious example of that is when we got out of Egypt. Can we get out of Egypt just by telling Paro we want to go out of Egypt? Paro had to be tricked. He had to be told we want to go for 3 days into the desert and we'll come back. We just want to go. I think that's ikvavaremia. That is trickery in order to get out of the situation. And then we have a promise that when Mashiach comes, the way that we'll be redeemed is Yasher. We'll hold our hands up straight and we'll hold our heads up and we'll march out and no one will stop us, right? We're going to go straight forward. So comes out, and this is just a little bit of, or a touch of understanding the Kli Yakar. And the Kli Yakar says then that the name Yaakov is our Galus name. It represents us when we're living in exile, when we don't have everything we need, when we have Goyim against us, when we're fighting for our existence. And the name Yisrael represents our Geula name. We have a Beis HaMikdash, we are the nation of the world, we have everything we need, we're not afraid of anything. That is the name Yisrael. Which then leads us to ask, why we call ourselves Bnei Yisrael. We should really be calling ourselves now Bnei Yaakov, right? We're living in the middle of Galus. We are in real exile. Everybody knows that. We are suffering. We are have people against us. We're fighting for our existence. So really, we are Yaakov. We are not Yisrael, and we should call ourselves Bnei Yaakov, not Bnei Yisrael. And this is what the Goyim hate, that although we live in exile, we are a nation of redeemed people. In other words, we don't give up ever. Even while we're in the worst exile, we call ourselves Bnei Israel. We believe that there's something more, that there is redemption. It's not all about this, and it's not all about today, and it's not all about what's happening now. We believe, and because we believe, that's why we exist. And says this pasuk that we just mentioned, they want to wipe us out. Let's go and wipe them out. You know what we have to wipe out? We want to make them forget the name Yisrael. We want to make them forget that they are believers, that they are people that they believe in something more, something bigger, and something greater. In our mentions, who are the people who are fighting and what they are fighting against? It says, "Kinatu levi yachtov." They've all gathered together. Alecha bris yichresu. It's on you who they have made a covenant against. So that's just a side thing saying to Hashem. Hashem, it's not actually us who the Goyim want to wipe out. Alecha, it's on you, Hashem. Okay, they want to, they don't want you to be the supreme God, and they're fighting with us because they're really angry or trying to get rid of you, Hashem. So you know how it is that we are the representatives of Hashem in this world, whether we like it or not. And when you are someone's representative, you take the flak, right? You are in trouble because of them. So while the Goyim are angry with God, it's us who are going to take the fallout. And at all different levels, we take fallout because we're representatives of God. I think the most obvious one, when it's not big like now, but the most obvious one in day-to-day life, people get angry with God for whatever. They lose a family, something like that, and right away they get cross with a rabbi. Why they get cross with the rabbi? He didn't visit enough, or they get cross with the doctor wasn't good enough, or they get cross with the hospital was rotten, whatever it is. It was God who did all of that. Really, the anger and upset should be aimed at God, okay? But everybody else takes the fallout. And obviously, so saying David HaMelech, this has been forever. If you are a representative of God, you like it or not, you will take the fallout. Continues by telling us the names of the nations who are fighting against the Yidden. He says, Ohale Edom, the tents of Edom, the Ishmaelim, and the Ishmaelites, Moab, the Hagrim, those from Moab, and those who are the children of Hagar. Gval, the Ammon, the Amalek, Precious and Yoshvetzar. Other names, which we're just going to look at in a minute. A commentary which I found so fascinating explains that the majority of these that are mentioned here in these two psukim are all descendants of Abraham. In other words, they are cousins. Okay, they are family who are fighting us. But more than that, explain the commentaries that because they come from Abraham, they are sourced in holiness. Their beginnings, their essence comes from a holy place. And because of that, in order to defeat them, we have to use holiness. We will not be able to defeat them just with warfare and with fighting and with guns and ammunition, because we have to defeat even their holiness. And the only way we can do that is by using our holiness. So a huge part of fighting the war against them is holiness. Okay, is doing this extra mitzvah, lighting this candle, making this bracha, saying this extra kapitel of Tehillim, because that's what's fighting their holiness. Who are these people? So we said Gval, we said who in the first pasuk. Then Gval, just to point out to you, is Lebanon. Ammon is Ammon. Amalek, we know. Pleshes. Okay, so interestingly, Pleshes is Palestine. It is Pleshet, the place Pleshes is where Gaza is now, just for our own information. And the Shemish Shmuel, who wrote his commentary some while back. He explains each one of these names, and he says about pleasure. He says that this were a people who were not accepted by anyone. So imagine this was written hundreds and hundreds of years ago. This is a people who were not accepted by anyone. They lived in between Egypt and Canaan, and the word pleshet means open on all sides. In other words, they didn't have their own standing, they didn't have their own morals, and in his words, they just took the bad traits of all the countries, of all the people around them. They were never a nice people, they were never moral, and they were never liked by the countries surrounding them. I just think it's so fascinating, like how David HaMelech is telling us this. And Im Yoshve Tsur, so Tsur is actually further up, and that's talking about like the Hezbollah area, the north. Okay. Then continues listing the people and says, Gam Ashur Nilvai Imam. Even Ashur joined in with them. So Ashur is Assyria, or Syria, we call it today, Iraq, and Ashur. It says about Ashur that no one expected them to join with all the other nations and fight the Jews, because Ashur had taken huge casualties at the time of Chizkiyahu. 185,000 of them were killed in war, and they were still licking their wounds, and nobody thought that they would get involved. And what happened? Gam Ashur, even Ashur, okay, who you might think had learned a lesson, came to join the other nations and fight with them. Also, say the commentaries that before that, Ashur was the most civilized of all that whole area, and they were known as a moral, upstanding people. So Gam Ashur, surprised, okay, these moral, good, decent people turned against us and joined everybody else and came to fight us. Hayuzraya Livnei Lot Selah. They joined together with the children of Lot. The request from Asaf, from David HaMelech, Pasuk Yud, Aselahem Kemidian, Kasisra, Chayavin, Benachal Kishan. Do to them like he did to Midian, Sisra and Yavin in Nachal Kishon. So Midian, if you remember, this is the time of Gideon, the prophet, the shofet, the judge, and famous story, just to remind you of it, that Sisra, who was the head of the army, he kept coming into Eretz Israel, destroying the crops, attacking people, small groups of people, and attacking them. And finally, and Malach comes to Gideon while he's in the garden one day and says to him, "Stop waiting for miracles. Get yourself an army and fight. Okay, fight them back." And so he collects this huge army. And how does he decide who to keep there? He tells them all to take a drink of water, and those who drank, in his description, like a dog, in other words, directly from the water, he sent them all home, and only kept those who drank by using their hands to get water. And he was left with a tiny little army of 300 men, and he went bravely to go and fight, and a big miracle happened. The people started fighting with each other and killing each other. Okay, and so this is how the Yidden won that war. Sisera Sisera, who was the general for King Yavin, he also tells us that he also was fighting little pockets of people the whole time, and eventually He was killed by Yael, the very famous story where she seduced him, gave him milk to drink, and put a peg through his head. So these are two examples of places that miraculously Hashem helped the Yidden win over their tormentors, and David Amelch was asking, do the same thing now. Nishmadu ve'ein dar hayudaimim la'adama. They were destroyed at Ein Dar, and they became manure for the ground. Shiseimon Adivema Erev, treat their princes like Erev, the Chizev, and like Ze'ev, Chazevach Talmuna B'chol Nesichemoi, and treat them like all these great princes who were made into nothing. Asher Amru, those were the ones who said, Nir Shalanu Es Na'is Elokim, we're going to go and destroy the beautiful things of Hashem. Elokai, my God, Shiseimach Galgal, make them turn like weeds, kakash, like straw, ifnei ruach, in front of the wind. Ka'esh tivar ya'ar, just like a fire burns a forest, uchlehavat lahait harim, and just like flames catch on the mountainside. Kain tirfem, so you should chase them, besarecha, with your storms, and make them afraid with your big storms. Cover their faces with shame, vivakshu shimcha Hashem, so that they start looking for your name, Hashem. Let them be humiliated forever and frightened. Let them die in disgrace. So that they will know, and we will know, that it's your name, Hashem, and only. Elyon al Kol Haaretz, you are the most high over the whole earth. And obviously this is the prayer that we make each time we say this capital Tehillim, especially now. Hashem should show us his strength, his koyach, against all those who have come out to fight against us. And that brings us to the end of this parak.
Thank you, Ruth.
That was wonderful.
Thank you very much.